Here we go. The end of the Byron Lazine podcast has officially come. And started this podcast 4 years ago because I was having the pleasure of having great conversations with team leaders, brokers, CEOs, and prop tech in our industry. And I thought it would be cool to share these conversations with all of you. And I hope that I've brought you value in sharing those conversations over the years. Please tell me if I have in the comments. I know I've learned a lot from these insights. These conversations have always been fascinating to me. I'm always striving to be a little bit better today than I was yesterday. And so I learn a lot from them, and sharing them with you has been a great pleasure. We've had just a number of CEOs tell us that, wow, this is the best podcast I've ever been on. The production, the experience, the clips, all of it. And there's really been, not by design, but by chance, I guess, 2 seasons of the Byron Lazine podcast. When I started 4 years ago, I was pretty committed, much like the Real Word podcast or other shows I've done where I do it every single week. And if you've heard me before, you know I say you've got to, if it's going to work, you've got to do it consistently each and every single week. You've got to put out the podcast. And on this particular show, the Byron Lazine podcast, I took a huge gap between when COVID hit and then restarting the pod as you know it today. I'm going to just go over some of the great names. It won't be everybody, but in I guess what I would consider that first batch of pods, we had on episode 4 Jason Pantana before he was Jason Pantana. We had Laura Brady, CEO of Concierge Auctions, just sold the company to Sotheby's. It's a great company. I even had Ricky Carruth on back in the day. Tom Toole has been on multiple times. He's popped into pods. He's had his own pod with me. Christoph Chu. Liz Novello. Liz, by the way, was asked over 100 times to be on a podcast, and her first podcast ever was the Byron Lazine podcast. She's been on, obviously, many since then. Everybody wants to talk to Liz. When we got into like that second batch where I really feel like we started to hit our stride right up the lead up to launching BAM, and obviously now with BAM, we've been very consistent with the show. We've had some great guests on. Spencer Raskoff, obviously former CEO of Zillow, and everything else Spencer does. That was the first BAM Byron Lazine podcast. Sean Black. Glenda Baker, fun fact about Glenda, she's been on the pod 3 times. She's had the most of anybody. Sam Coleman. Taya DeCarlo's been on a bunch. Eric, the broke agent, he's been on far too many times. Johnny Drinks. We opened up a extremely expensive bottle of Pappy Van Winkle when we went down and saw Johnny Drinks, who's been in the mortgage business for over 30 years. Ryan Pineda, David Childers, Nick Bailey, CEO of Remax, Greg Schwartz, former Zillow exec and CEO of Tomo, Jared James, recently Mark Davison, Tim Smith. Those podcasts were just fascinating, and I appreciate all of the feedback I've had from you guys in the years. But the time has come where we stop doing the Byron Lazine podcast as you know it. Okay, we are going to take a break, and we are going to come back with what we're calling the Byron Lazine podcast 3.0. We're going to start to go into seasons with this content. So the old way of doing it is over, but the new way of doing it is coming soon. I want to continue to share these stories with you, but I don't want to just put out a podcast to put out a podcast. The quality of this podcast has gone up every single episode. We've only done 79, which is shocking to me, in 4 years because of the large gap during COVID. But when we come back for seasons, you will know how many episodes that you will be delivered. You will know when those start, when those finish, and what to expect. My audio channel, which has previously been the Byron Lazine Podcast, will switch to the Byron Lazine Audio Experience, and you'll get weekly uploads of if I'm on a talk or when the Byron Lazine podcast comes back, all of my content's still going to get uploaded there. In fact, the audio, whether you're Spotify or Apple, is actually going to get more content. So I'm really excited about season 3.0 of the Byron Lazine pod. The names, we're going to go bigger and better. We're going to keep stretching the boundaries of the conversations that are possible so that we can all learn together. And those are going to be coming in 2023. So after we get past the new year, we'll start promoting those. You'll know when they drop, who's going to be on season 3.0. And I'm really excited to get to work to bring all of you who have been following this something really special. So love to know who you'd like to see on season 3.0. Let me know in the comments. Who should I have on next? What type of conversations should we have? What changes would you make if you've been following along? And I truly appreciate you being a part of this podcast. So I'll see you certainly on other podcasts here on the BAM YouTube channel. Consider subscribing. Please do. And I'll see you guys all soon.